Does my vote really count? Have you ever found yourself wondering out loud and asking yourself, really, is there any point in exercising my franchise? Or in Nigerian parlance, do you ever feel like I cannot come and go and kill myself? When it comes to voting, there's been a lot of apathy in the land. But as we go to the polls in February 2019, can we expect for things to change with a lot of people going on about their PVC? My name is Isabella Akinseye, and this is Politico Politica.
Politico Politica with Isabella Akinseye.
Our guest today is an entrepreneur. He is the co-founder and pioneer chief operating officer of Crest Agro Product. He's the founder and lead consultant of Point Nexus Limited, a specialized consultancy company. Prior to becoming an entrepreneur, he has over 12 years of work experience delivering operational efficiency in various companies like Kimberly-Clark, Sub-Saharan Africa, Sanofi Aventis, and Nestle Nigeria PLC. He holds a master's degree in business administration and strategy from the Lagos Business School of the Pan-Atlantic University, a graduate diploma in procurement and supply chain management from the UK, and a BSc in economics from University of Jos. He holds a professional membership of the Chartered Institute of Purchasing and Supply UK. He hopes to create 100,000 jobs in Nigeria by creating businesses that dominate strategic value chains in the agriculture sector of Nigeria and through public service. He's currently running for a seat in the Benue State House of Assembly representing Adoka Ugboju. He is Leonard Eteh Ebute. Leonard, welcome to Politico Politica.
Thank you, Isabella.
So on today's show, we'll be discussing voter apathy. You'll agree that there's been a lot of media noise when it comes to the PVC. Before the cutoff date, people were encouraged to go get their permanent voter's card. But is this really enough to curb the issue of voter apathy?
No, it isn't. So to curb any issue, you have to look at the root cause. I mean, people will turn up for candidates that they believe in, candidates that inspire them. In the last few elections in the north, people turned up for General Buhari that way in the northern part of Nigeria because he was, like him, hate him, a messianic figure. They romanticized about him and they turned up for him in that part of town. The southern part of Nigeria, where education is a little bit better and people are more independent thinking, that wasn't the case because the alternatives available to them weren't inspiring enough. And so you see that in the voting pattern for Nigeria, Northerners seem to have performed better and Southerners seem to shy away. And the reason is what I just told you. It's not a Nigerian thing, it's a global thing. But right now in Nigeria, we are underperforming because you look at the trend and it's only about 35% of persons that come out to vote in an election.
Okay, Nigeria, when we think of voter apathy, young people on Twitter, the elite, people who are constantly commenting on social media easily come to mind. What do you think is responsible for voter apathy in that demographic? People
cannot correlate between their vote and the progress they want to see in Nigeria. And when you cannot see that, you see the exercise as one in futility, especially when you do have other things to do with your time. And so you tend to see people venting on social media, voting on Facebook and Twitter and all of that because it's convenient. But because they cannot correlate between their vote and the development they seek, then they sit back. Now, the point is that shouldn't justify being apathetic to the political terrain. Actually, the reason for political participation should be the underperformance of the political class. It should inspire younger people who are going to be here tomorrow to bear the brunt of today's poor leadership to want to change that situation. But unfortunately, when bread and butter is competing with destiny, bread and butter always wins.
So you're saying stomach infrastructure would lead people to
A hungry man is not a thinking man. When unemployment rate is rising, youth unemployment rate is rising, the economy is going bad, the worst time for businesses in Nigeria since 1999 is right now. Entrepreneurs are folding up. People are piling away to Canada and the US in droves. This is not a time for people to begin to look 4 or 5 years if they cannot think of today and tomorrow's feeding. Each time bread competes with destiny, bread wins over destiny. And so the youth enforcers of today and the leadership of today needs to stop blaming the youths and the vulnerable class for their apathy to politics. Rather, they should look to solving those issues that will make a man comfortable enough to think about tomorrow.
Okay, but so let's look at the issue of voter intimidation, violence at the polls. Do you think that scares people away from exercising their franchise?
Statistically, no, because the percentage of voter violence in any election is statistically insignificant. In the last election, for example, you can count the number of polling stations where there were issues. The last election in Osun, I think it was only about 6 polling stations or so that there were issues. So you don't even have a local government-wide crisis, not to talk of a world-wide crisis. You have pockets of polling stations here and there. And so statistically it's insignificant. But from a psychological point of view, they feel that there was violence in one remote place can make someone feel that there may be violence in his own place. But again, that goes to show the level of interest in politics. If you know that this is important for tomorrow's future, I mean, you should be able to brace those psychological barriers and still participate.
And very quickly, what's the solution to voter apathy?
I think ordinarily people should be sufficiently motivated by the poverty in the land to want to participate in the political process. But obviously that's not the case. Nigerians do not believe that politics is going to change Nigeria. There's that psychological barrier for us to overcome. What can help us overcome that barrier is when popular figures begin to venture into politics, is when the Facebook enforcers themselves move into the political terrain. It is when you and myself that are so-called voices move into that terrain, and then we carry along our army of supporters and followers. Then they will have an inspirational figure to follow.
Thank you, Leonard, for your contributions on the topic of the day. Do you have contributions of your own? Please do go online, tweet at PP with Isabella, and use the hashtag Politico Politica. You can also comment on our social media platforms on Instagram as well as Facebook. Politico Politica is the handle. Politico Politica with me, your host Isabella Akinseye, will be back shortly. Do stay with us. You're still tuned in to Politico Politica with me, your host, Isabella Akinseye. Before the break, I discussed voter apathy with our guest, Leonard Eteh Ebute, an aspirant in the Benue State House of Assembly election. So, Leonard, let's move into politics and more. This is a segment where we look at your journey into politics. Has politics always been on the agenda for you?
No, never. I think politics took me by surprise. I am a trained supply chain expert. My career took me through multinational companies all my life. I chose the entrepreneurial path, and that journey took me into agribusiness, which is my forte. And there is just so much in that forte to explore. But the more I delve into agriculture, the more I saw the correlation between government and progress in agriculture, which I see as the only realistic path to Nigeria's economic growth right now. And so when I saw that correlation, I saw an opportunity in government to begin to add value. Fortunately, I'm from Benue State, which is the food basket of the world, in my opinion. So my journey into agribusiness made me see the correlation between growth in agriculture and growth in the Nigerian economy, and we could connect that to government. And so I saw opportunity in government to begin to add value, especially from Benue State, where I'm from, which is the headquarters of agriculture in Nigeria. So that is the inspiration for venturing into agriculture, as it correlates directly with my life ambition, which is to create jobs.
Okay, you're quite young, you're under the age of 40. What do you make of the not too young to run movement?
The success of the not too young to run movement is, for me, one, that for the first time young people are able to organize and bring together different parties to get a bill passed. That's the first time it's happening. From a success point of view, in the area of not too young to run, that's still very far from reality. Young people are not in leadership, not because of the age barrier. I mean, presidency is 40, but how many 40-year-olds are contesting? There is a financial barrier, there's an experience barrier, there is even an internal party politics barrier, which is the biggest barrier of all, making it very difficult to navigate for young people right now.
Okay, let's touch on political godfatherism, political structures. Do you have any personal political mentors, people who have guided you in your journey so far?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that I learned from the bad examples. At least I know what I don't want to look like at the end of my political journey. No, because nobody is holding me by the hand, in the sense that my program, the program that inspired my venture into politics, there is no specific figure that is currently pursuing that kind of agenda. The link between agriculture, employment, women empowerment, and politics. That's my interest area. I cannot pinpoint a political figure that can hold my hand in that direction. So I'm blazing a new path, and hopefully I'll be mentoring others soon.
I know you already alluded to your love for agriculture and creating jobs to sustain the economy, but why did you decide to go to the Benue State House of Assembly to seek a seat there? I mean, some would have said, why don't you go for Senate or the governorship or even the presidency?
Easy question, Isabella. So, by every shade of analysis, the best place to launch any agricultural agenda is Benue State. It's the most agriculturally viable state in Nigeria. And so, if I have a program in agriculture with links to governance and government, then aren't I lucky that I'm from Benue State and eligible to contest for office in Benue State? And so, that's more than enough. I could do what I want to do faster in Benue State than I could do it sitting in Abuja.
And my final question will be, what's been your biggest challenge when it comes to politics?
Well, the established political order is difficult to surmount. The PDP is an extremely complex system, even though I think it's a better established system than the opposition, the ruling party right now. It's still a complex system. So navigating established political systems that are retrogressive in nature is difficult. But then that is the challenge to expect when you venture into politics. There are other options available. APGA is an option. The other political platforms are available for us to explore if we discover that the established parties are going to be a barrier to what we want to do. The people and what we stand for is far more important than any political party. And so we are willing to challenge for our place in any system to make sure we get that opportunity to do what we think the people require.
Thank you, Leonard. We'll let you speak more about your plans for your constituency should you be voted into power on our Project Benue segment. But now we'll be taking a quick breather on Politico Politica with me, your host, Isabella Akinseye. Do stay with us. You're still tuned in to Politico Politica with me, your host, Isabella Akinseye. Before the break, our guest, Leonard Eteh Ebute, shared with us his political journey, some of the challenges he's faced. But now he'll make a case on what he will do differently if he's elected into power to serve in the Benue State House of Assembly, representing Adoka Ugboju constituency. So Leonard, on our project Benue State, tell us, how will you assess Benue State and your constituency now?
On almost any crop that you can think of, Benue State is the most competitive. Benue State produces more cassava than anywhere in the world. And you would know if you read my CV that I am the cassava man for Nigeria. We have the largest cassava farm maybe in Africa right now, and we intend to have the biggest cassava processing business in the world over the next 10 years. Benue State is the headquarter of that. Unfortunately, that project is in Kogi State, which is the second next best place. If you talk about soybean, Benue State is the best place for producing soybean in Nigeria and produces more, but there is a deficit of over 1 million metric tons in Nigeria. For millet, a deficit of over 4.4 million metric tons. And you can go from crop to crop to crop that Benue State has the potential of producing. So my entrepreneurial journey has taught me to build businesses, because when you build businesses in partnership with government, you solve two problems. One, you don't have sustainability issues because the business becomes self-running. So successive governments cannot interfere with the success of that business. It means that the jobs you create are permanent jobs that are self-replicating or even self-expanding, which is what we have done in Kogi. Now we recruit maybe 200, 300, 400 persons, and we intend to get to about 5,000 persons. In Benue State, we could do that. Now, when you create programs like that, mechanized large-scale agricultural projects, you also create opportunities for cross-fertilization of ideas. The agricultural practice in Nigeria is the worst, even in Africa.
I like how you're touching on the business side of agriculture, but do you think we produce enough food, or we have the potential to produce enough food to actually feed the nation because of the huge import bills that we spend on food?
Benue State can literally feed Africa. I mean, literally feed Africa. Benue State has over 20 million hectares of arable land, and a chunk of that is completely uninhabited. And so for all of the millet we require in Nigeria, the deficit in millet, for example, you require only 800,000 hectares of land. That's less than 5%. You can get that in Benue State. For soya, you require maybe 200,000 hectares of land. And, so what we're saying is, yes, we have the potential. The gap between potential and reality is government and businesses working together. So I already understand the business side. I need to create that marriage with government. And the best way to create a marriage is to be a part of the marriage.
Okay. And final question will be, beyond agriculture, what else does Benue State have to offer?
Beyond agriculture, what else does Nigeria have to offer? I mean, outside of the service sector, like what you do, what Nollywood does, and all of that, what makes Nigeria competitive is agriculture. Oil goes away, all of these, for me, they are unimportant. What will put Nigeria on the global map of developed countries is agriculture and the service sector. And so, if Benue State is nothing else but the birthplace of agriculture, the cradle of agriculture, that will make Benue State the best place to be in Nigeria. And that's the excitement that I have.
Thank you, Leonard, for your contributions.
Thank you.
We'll be switching things up on a lighter note on our quick fire segment. You don't want to miss that. It's now time for our quick fire segment on Politico Politica with me, your host, Isabella Akinseye. Leonard, are you ready?
Thank you. I'm ready.
Okay, number one, the first female governor will emerge in the next elections, true or false?
False.
2, the party that will dominate in 2019 is?
PDP.
3, young people have what it takes to be leaders because?
Yes, they do have what it takes to be leaders, because first, they are Nigerians. That gives them the requisite. They are part of the problem, so they can be part of the solution.
4, the funniest thing I've read about myself online.
Okay, somebody called me a bigot because I didn't like Buhari, and I found that really funny because, yes, I don't like him, and I make that pretty obvious. Is that bigotry?
5, the candidate I'm most afraid of contesting against you or going into the elections?
None.
6, Nigerians will vote with their stomach or their brain.
Stomach.
7, if not you, who?
For my constituency?
Yes.
None.
There you have it on our quick fire segment. We'll soon be rounding up this episode of Politico Politica with me, your host, Isabella Akinseye. But first, let's check out what's happening on the political landscape. Enjoy. To conclude this episode of Politico Politica with me, your host, Isabella Akinseye, is our final word segment where we give our guests a final chance to make a case to Nigerians and to you, our viewers. Leonard, imagine you're strapped to an oxygen tank or you're about to take your final breath. I want you to look into your camera and really make it count.
My message to Nigerians is very simple. This is our country, and it's worth fighting for. 2019 for me is a very important year for Nigerians, especially the young, the women, the vulnerable population. It is a time for you to make a statement that you have an equal stake in this country as whoever it is that is running for office. This is not Buhari's country, it's not Atiku's country, it's not Obasanjo's country. It is our country. And in a general election, the highest and the lowliest are entitled to one vote. So go out and cast that one vote for your conscience, that one vote for your future, that one vote for the future of this country and your children. Thank you.
Thank you, Leonard. Quite a lot to say to Nigerians, but very optimistic and very positive.
Yeah. I believe in this country, and it's worth fighting for.
And we also believe in Nigeria here on Politico Politica. And that's where we'll be wrapping up today's episode of the show. But remember, politics is indeed for everyone. I'm Isabella Akinseye, reminding you to play your part and stay woke.